Welcome, CNG 132 online to week 10. This is our last week together. I should say last week, a couple days. Um, when we look at chapter 15 content, it's about risk mitigation, and we get to go visit like um, our first chapter when we started learning about mitigation. But then we get to see how everything from almost every chapter ties in this chapter. We look at managing risk, reducing risk, mitigating risk, common security issues. We start to revisit the topic of security as a multi-layer approach, and has to be done. Assessing. They may say, "Hey, let's make this office secure for cybersecurity. Let's make it secure." But then, how are you going to do that? You break it all into let's take a look at firewalls. Let's take a look at TCP/IP. I just said that because I know I'm going to bring it up here in a little bit. But let's take a look at the TCP/IP. Let's take a look up at user logins. So very, very top-down approach to security. When we look at one thing to remember as we do start to analyze risk is that you don't see eliminating risk. You cannot eliminate risk. It's always reducing because you can only do your best to, play the what if scenarios. And it shouldn't be what if. Somebody said something to me is it's not if, it's when. It's not we're never going to have a data breach. It's when we're going to have a data breach. You're preparing for that instance. You're preparing for a user spreading a worm across your system and then dealing with that worm as it happens. So here is a class that I'm in for this summer. And this is Information Assurance Class 605, Advancing in Cybersecurity. And I wanted you guys to look at the overview for this topic. This week, we're looking at TCP/IP, how networks work, relating back to Front Range's 124 class, CNG 124. So if you took 124, you have an idea of how the networks work. But then in this higher level class, we're theorizing on how security, I shouldn't say theorizing, because we put an application. We're taking a look at how cybersecurity could work and benefit you in an IP and network environment. You can see we're using Nmap, Zenmap to actually, and we did like a lab where we scanned our home systems and had to document what we found and then try to see if those were secure. Week 3 last week, we're looking at Linux environments, hardening Linux OSs, making those secure. And this lab was really long. I think that one took me about 6 hours to complete. But this is, you get a good idea of Linux through Front Range's, what was it, 201, 202, and 203 course. You get an idea of how the operating systems work at this level, and then you see how cybersecurity course relates to Linux. And once again, this is a 600 level course, so you guys have something to look forward to. Week 2, Windows OS. If you've taken, let's see, CNG 211 at Front Range, you have an idea of even how to get into this course, preparing you for Windows hardening. I'm pretty good at Windows, so this one didn't take me too long, but I would assume that if you were doing this, it'd probably be like another 6-hour lab. Hardening Windows, creating, it was really, really, really cool labs, especially at these higher levels. You get to see exactly how they're done. But once you've learned this class and you've ran through what we've done over the summer, which is a lot of material, and I admit that it is a lot of material, but we do not dive deeply into specifics. That's meant for a little bit later on, but as long as you get this foundation of, hey, I got the idea of how it works, then when you run into these concepts, even at front range, you're going to be like, oh, there's security based on this. The CNG 256 class enterprise security, a great place to apply some of these concepts that you maybe did not touch on, or maybe want to explore just a little bit more. And I know those classes do have projects with them, and maybe you want to implement, hey, how do I do a firewall in CNG 256, or take CNG 133, which is the firewall class. Disaster recovery, there is a class at Front Range on that. I think it's CNG 136. There's another online only class. Maybe that's the online only class. There's another online only class that's a great, another security class. That if you're interested in this stuff, start to explore it above and beyond your normal course load, just to make sure you guys graduate on time. I'm gonna put something in the news for this week, because it was news last week, and here is the Equifax data breach settlement. So here's what they had so far. On July 22nd, 147 million people were attacked, or I shouldn't say, not in July 7th. The finalization happened in July 22nd. The hack happened back in 2017. Here's a summary of what happened. You can find out if you're eligible by clicking this, but do some snooping too. Let me see if I can bring this over here. So before you exit the course, so we can actually check here. There's tools out there to help you to see if you've been hacked. Have I been pwned? Email address, glemos@student.cccs.edu. That's my school one. Have I been pwned? Good news, no pwnage found. Okay. So we'll use my trash email. We'll use my junk email. Oh no. So there has been, as you see, breaches where you were pwned in. MyFitnessPal from Under Armour, MySpace. I don't even know what this one is. R2 Games. I believe that was from my T-Mobile days. Share this. I don't even know what that is. But obviously, they're probably a company linked to a company that had access to my email, and they just didn't have the right security. MySpace, definitely use MySpace. And that, once again, you should have email set up that you can enter in things to know if they're junk, what type of junk. That at live one, once again, that's my huge one, just so I kind of know where to go. And this, have I been pwned? I'll put these links in the news. Maybe you create, how many do I think I have like 7 different emails, besides my business one, which my business one I use just for business. But everything else is kind of like just waste of junk. Communicating with students at school, I'd send a Gmail email. If it's has to deal with my car, it's a AOL email. And it's, if I could show you my phone and show you all these emails I have, there's specific emails that I know what should be in them. And if I do see a lot of activity at one, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I got compromised. It's time to change that password on that email. And I go in there and change that password. Another cool feature, how much time do I have? at 10 o'clock. I'm going to cut this video off here. I'll expand on it in another video this week, but I'll show you how to get your own private email so you can be the administrator of that environment. But good work so far. I'll be adding this video shortly and put those links in the news for this week. Have a good week. Bye.